Hi, I'm Nikki. Welcome to Good and Planty, which is a new leaf production and a part of my Figuring Out Life series. So, um, today we're going to talk about air layering because it's brilliant. It is literally brilliant. Tell you why it is. Because sometimes you have beloved people in your family who have wonderful plants and you want some of their plant, but you want to make it like a quicker, more seamless process when you do take part of their plant or when you take part of your own plant. And so you want it to already be rooted and ready when you cut it. You don't want to have to let it sit in water. You want it to just be rooted and ready. This is when air layering helps. And I recently heard someone say something that wasn't correct. They were saying that you had to have aerial roots, which are roots that are growing in the air. And some plants that you'll see that have aerial roots will be Monstera, like my Monstera deliciosa. You'll see roots coming out of the air. And it may also be plants like orchids, where you'll see the roots that are climbing out of the base. That's not the only kind of plant that you can do air layering with, and I technically have never seen someone try to air layer an orchid. Let me just go ahead and be clear about that. But I know people do it with monsteras all the time. What you can also do is use this for any leggy plant, because leggy plants have like a bit of a stalk. And so two plants that I chose to try out air layering with is the Dieffenbachia, which is also called dumb cane. I think I maybe already gave a brief lesson on that, but don't let the milky substance get near your mouth or even on your hand where you might later put it in your eye or your mouth. Don't do it. It's dangerous. But the Dieffenbachia has these growth notes, like you'll see, that are, let's see, can we get it in view? We'll get it in view. It has those growth notes. And from each one of the growth nodes along the spine, there is a place where you could have roots to develop. So we also have today this plant that's called a mini umbrella plant. I believe it's originally one that originated in China. It looks like umbrella, and the one we have is variegated, and the scientific or Latin name I want to say is Schefflera Arboricola. I'm pausing so that I can have the correct pronunciation inserted here. All right. Okay, so we're going to call this dumb cane, and we're going to call the other one the mini umbrella plant. We're not going to be fancy, but I am excited for you to see what air layering has done. Let's look closer. Okay, so here we go. This is the dumb cane. What I did was took water bottles. I cut off the top and the bottom of the water bottle, and I cut a slit going down the side of the water bottle. You place some kind of growing medium inside the water bottle, or your clear cup or whatever you might use, but I recommend something clear. And then you water this thing just like it's in a pot, and the roots grow out. And then what you want to do is just cut below the part where the roots are going. So I separated these good enough to make 2 cuts. The problem was that right after I did that, once the roots were just starting to grow, we went to visit family in DC, and my cousin's husband had a bit of a root of dumb cane that was already water propagating. So basically it had not done much by way of gaining roots, but it was already cutting in water. He let me have a piece, and therefore my mom was like, absolutely not. I don't want you cutting my baby because it's rather tall and impressive, and she just doesn't want to see it happen. I keep plotting on this though because I've already done the work. So I figured what I do, because of that, I stopped watering it sometimes. I stopped making a point to come to her house and water. There's a catch bowl there because when I was watering it, I had a bowl angle that was catching a lot of the water. Since the root of this or trunk of this plant is so curved, I'm looking forward to mine being just as big one day. But I think she should let me expand this plant. And I heard one woman say that by some act of God and divine intervention that the long stem broke and that she was able to get a cutting that way. And this stem is so curvy and so unstable that I feel like an act of God might be coming soon. So I'm going to go ahead and remove part of my air propagation. But all this is to say that this is a very leggy plant. It's got a very long root or stem, well, trunk or stem, and roots have grown from the growth nodes. So you don't have to see aerial roots. You can just have a plant that has a long, leggy trunk or stem to it and test out whether you want to air layer or air propagate. Let's look deeper. So in this closer look, essentially what I've done was I've taken clear tape to tape this thing together so that it could not come apart and spill dirt everywhere. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove it. Let's just say victory is mine. But let's also say that I now have a huge mess to clean off the floor. But if you can see this, this is a wonderful root system. Like, this baby is so ready to be chopped and propped. Chopped off the stalk and propped into its own independent pot. And now my mom really can have one plant coming from the root. And there's a lot going on down there because I did some of that just now today. But that's one pot coming from the dirt. One plant, one individual pot. Then this is another plant from here to, I'd say, like, yay, just beneath this root system. So this is a second plant with its own independent root system. This is a third plant here, starting just below these roots and possibly going up to the top, the prettiest plant. But technically, each of these growth nodes, each one is its own individual potential plant. So this thing could be chopped up into so many pieces. But I know that she wants to have the grandeur. But I don't want her to be afraid to cut it so that it can quickly regenerate what it has lost. Because I do think that is possible. And the goal for this plant, even though it's not my own, is to have a portion of it to be my own. And to have her impressed that it can, in fact, grow just as big and lush, if not bigger, if she will allow me to chop and prop it. Because right now, it's one of her most impressive because it's one of the biggest as far as height and girth. I'm not going to lie. But it could be greater because it could be multiplied. And why not let that happen and share? I don't know. I'm your child. That's all I'm saying. I'm your child. Give me a piece of this dumb cane. Okay, I'm sorry. I did not mean to get loud. But that's this. This is the Dieffenbachia, also called dumb cane. Now we're going to scoot on over past this Aglaonema. It happens to be one that I've already chopped. And the second one is coming in from the original, but its rebirth has already started there. We're switching over to the second air layering project, which is this mini umbrella plant. This stem here was the original mother stem or mother plant. I did the same air layering as over here, where I got a water bottle and I put it above this cut spot that had no plants on it. And this blank spot that also had no plants or leaves on it was just above it. All these roots formed on this woody stalk here that you would think wouldn't have produced much. All these roots formed, and so I cut off a piece under, no, I don't think I cut enough under the root. And I did not leave much above the root. I tried to be bare minimum and still keep her with this longer part. So at this point, what I'm going to have to do, because my little piece, this tiny little piece, died. So I'm going to have to probably wind up taking this one and seeing what it can grow on to become. That's what's probably going to happen. This one did not have any of this growth. So really, I revitalized this woody trunk, and now it's got all this growth that I am so proud of, and that she didn't even notice. So she's probably not going to notice if I take this piece and try to make it great. Of course, this piece is cuter over here. So naturally, I kind of want that piece, because if you aren't noticing what I've done, do you really deserve the plant? But that's not my place to take part of my mom's plant. It is my place to help care for them, though. I don't mind doing that. So I will probably happily this is what I may do. I may even take a piece of that water bottle, put it along in here somewhere, and see if I can propagate from here so that she can still keep this part coming from there. And I can just have a piece that starts about right there and plant it and just let it grow and do its own thing. So we shall see. But these are two different ways that you can see. Now, I'm going to be honest, the growth nodes are way more marked and clear in this green stem. Can you see that? You see those individual little demarcations that are lines? Those are the growth nodes. It is much more clear on this green stem, which is why I was so shocked that on this brown stem that did not necessarily look like it would do as much, that there is so much that has burst out of the end. So that is air layering, and now you see a reason to try it, especially if you're, like I said, wanting to share with someone. These are her orchids. I mentioned in another video that I now see that my mom's a little neglectful. But these are the aerial roots that I was mentioning. Some people were saying go to a plant with aerial roots and go ahead and do your air layering with those. And as I was saying earlier, boom, here you've got in this back corner, about to be moved back to its original location, you have got what is called a Monstera deliciosa, and it's got some aerial roots. So technically you could take this root that's already started, place it in dirt, and then once it's got way more roots connected to it, you would chop just below that node and root system, and then you would place this part in a pot of its own, and it would already be completely ready from an aerial root that otherwise doesn't really have to go in dirt. But it can. You can stick it right back, direct it right back into the dirt so that it can continue to grow. Right now, it's just not long enough. It would be, though, if I was adding a water pot. Well, not even a water pot. I guess I could add water to let it grow in water, or I could add dirt. Or I could add the Spanish moss, like I was saying before. Just some kind of growing medium, which may be other things. People grow in all kinds of stuff. But those are the ones that I'm kind of more prone to use. Water or dirt or possibly some moss. So there you have it. We have covered everything that I can tell you as far as tips with air layering. Thank you so much for watching. And don't be afraid to do what I want to do with my mom's plant. Do not be afraid to air prop and chop and then prop. it'll be more fulfilling. Because otherwise, if you are trying to put this thing in water, that other one took me a couple of months to get a very strong root system and to then put it in dirt. And this is kind of like instant gratification, sort of. You still have to water it, but you're going to be watering the pot anyway. So you take a couple of minutes one day, you set up your air layering system, which can be as simple as a clear cup or a water bottle and some clear tape. And you go to town with watering it as per use. And then you suddenly have your own independent plant. I love this method, and I hope you try it and love it too. All right, thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate your like. I appreciate your share. And I hope you'll come back and check in on all these plants, especially if by some mysterious act, this plant winds up being neatly cut or chopped or broken just at the perfect place for me to then make my mom a separate plant and myself a separate plant. And my final note should be an obvious one as the final reason why it would be great to try air layering, which is also known as air propagation. Because whether you want a piece of someone's plant or you want to share a piece of your own plant, propagate your own plant, multiply your own plant, expand your own plant, it's great if you can be sure that as you do a change to a plant that is on a long or leggy stem or stalk, it is great to know that the most healthy part of your plant will still be okay and will thrive even after the big chop. So say for instance with this plant, once you chop it here and once you chop it under here, you don't want to have this wonderful part that's super full and beautiful to die because you have done something different. You don't want any part of that beauty to be diminished. And it won't be. It'll be shorter, but it will still be every bit as healthy because it will have its own root system once you cut it. So even though with these dumb canes, you can literally chop and just prop directly into dirt, this already ensures that it has roots and that it should have a lot less of a shock to it because the roots are already established versus propping it in dirt and letting it establish roots. The roots are already there from your air layering. So that would be one of the last reasons, not just because you want your piece that you go away with to have its own roots as in here, but because you want the parts of the plant that were already healthy to be able to be sustainable. So thanks so much for watching. Be blessed.